Hi, this is Vladimir Štimac from Anadolu Efes. You're listening Sweet 16, best podcast out there.
Out with the old and in with the new. It is the last Sweet 16 of the season. We know the champs, we know the teams, but what else do we need to know? It's all ahead here on The Big Show. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to Sweet 16. Yes, this is our Saturday night, not live edition, I would say. As always, I'm Moshe from Team Scout. With me, my great friends and co-hosts, both Emmet Ryan from Ball Europe, Aris from Eurohoops. Aris, we missed you not having with us physically in the Final Four, though we do know that you supported us all the way, all day, every day, as always. But guys, how are you doing? How's Athens? How's Dublin?
And sunny, which is, I know, things you're not used to hearing from me here at Ball in Europe, but we're having good weather and getting ready, of course, for our national teams to take part in the Small Nations next week. So all exciting here on my end, Moshe.
And hello from rainy Athens. We have turned the tables this time around, and with the season over, it's finally the time to get a little bit relaxed.
And yeah, the season is over, but we've got a lot to talk about in our final show of the season. We're going to talk a little bit about sort of the new lineup, of course, for EuroLeague next year, with a few new teams making their bows. And as well, a little bit of a look at the rumour mill and, of course, some noticeable impacts such as Oli's new sponsorship, Milano seemingly trying to sign roughly every citizen of Europe and beyond, and a few other interesting moves around that. We'll also go back a little bit on that Final Four from a month ago, and there might be a recent draftee mentioned at some point during the podcast across various sections, who knows. But now, as ever, for the last time, the most accurately named section in all of podcasting today, it's the 4-minute warning.
4 weeks warning.
That sounds about right this time, Moshe. And we begin, obviously, with the new look in terms of the teams in EuroLeague. I suppose, Aris, I'll start with you on this. You've got a few new teams coming in next year via qualification. Buduknost, Bayern, the obvious ones that stand out. Like, you look at sort of the sides who are coming in, and obviously Granca as well. Like, who's jumping out to you as being ones that could be, not necessarily, we're not talking playoff contenders or anything like that yet. We haven't done write-ups, or the possible lineups. But who do you think could be the most interesting type of side to watch, really, of the new arrivals into EuroLeague next season?
Well, I think that the most important difference, no matter how you look at it, it's Bayern. I think we can't sidestep around the fact that Germany finally has a powerhouse back in the EuroLeague. I'm not disrespecting here Bruce Bamberg. They had a great run and they are continuing to be among the top teams in Europe. But on the other hand, it was proven time and time again that when you get a big club in the EuroLeague, a multi-sport club that has a big number of fans, in general it's something that helps the competition. That's why, on the other hand, teams like Buduknost, like Darussafaka, and like Gran Canaria will add their own spice in next season, but I don't think that they are game changers. The only game changer here is Bayern Munich in terms of the general media buzz that they will create in Germany.
Well, I agree with you, but I think that first of all, we have to remind everyone that Khimki is back in the EuroLeague, as a matter of fact. And I think that they would try to do a specific amount of adjustments to maybe get one step further this year. But I think it's not just that. I mean, we're talking about Darussafaka. We have to address the fact that we don't know who's going to be their sponsor yet. And it was Doge Group that kind of took care of the contracts that were signed the year before. But right now, like, in order to understand who's going to really make a fight for something, if at all, we really have to have the full picture, which is yet to be known. But at the same time, I will say that having Bayern Munich, and perhaps we still don't know if they're going to extend Coach Radonjic. They do have Bayesi, and Daniel Bayesi is a game changer. That's something that we've discussed a few times during this season when we saw him making the move from Bamberg to Bayern, and Bayern's going to have the money. We can at least assume that. I would say that from that perspective, perhaps Bayern Munich and of course we have to look at Khimki also as two of the most interesting projects to be back with us in the EuroLeague.
Yeah, and with Bayern, of course, the key thing with them getting the auto spot from Germany this year is it means they're basically locked in for the next 4 seasons because they have a 3-year deal with what would be sort of an effective A license, even though they're not an A licensed team, but it's treated as one, so to speak, in terms of the impact. So no matter what they do in Deutschland next year, barring absolute impossible to predict collapse, they're locked in for 4 years, so they can basically go into each season being able to plan with a bit more longer term approach to it, which is huge in terms of security. Like you look at the likes of Zvezda, for example, who are year to year unsure of what league they'll be playing in, and now it's Budapest with the ABA League spot. So like for Bayern, that like extra layer of security, very, very interesting for them. For me, the most interesting, and I do not expect them to be making that much noise on the floor, but purely because of the location and the nature of their support and their history, Gran Canaria. It's always a sort of a fun crowd out there, and like they know how to get up for a big night in be it Europe or Spain. So obviously, and it's a destination as well in a truest sense. So I think that aspect is definitely going to have an interesting tweak to it. I not just even on the floor, but in the overall gestalt of basketball, gentlemen. I think we look at this and it's kind of going. It's bringing that extra sort of dimension to the league next year, having a team that far out, far removed. And definitely, I think that'll be quite interesting in terms of I think there will be 1 or 2 nights there where it'll be that'll be the league pass equivalent game where you have to suddenly jump to the Grand Cam match because something cool is happening out there. So that one jumps out for me as one. Obviously, within all this, we can't completely ignore what happened, in terms of, in Madrid, because they're going to be a pretty new look side in one respect, in that they're down a young man. They won the title, but a lot of their players are obviously going to be a year older. For the most part, most of the band is coming back. But with Madrid, obviously, the loss of Doncic. Now, I remember when Fener lost Bogdanovic and Udo last season, we talked about sort of, the replacement of their production rather than the players. Aris, starting with you again here, like for Madrid, because replacing Luka Doncic, there's no obviously straight swap for swap. So do you think we're going to see a different look to how Madrid play in order to work around not having that type of a player next year?
Yes, but on the other hand, let's pretend for a moment that Real Madrid has been unlucky, and like this year they missed Sergio Yul due to injury, and that's exactly what's happening with Doncic. Of course, Doncic's injury is that he's picked at the 3rd place of the NBA draft, and he will continue his career in Dallas, and he will sign, no doubt about it. So practically with Rudy Fernandez finishing the season strong and expected to stay with the team, I think that the only question for Real Madrid is who will replace Doncic. It's as simple as that. And even if they don't find an adequate replacement, they have all the other pieces in place.
And Moshe, for you, like you say you're a GM and you just lost a key piece. What do you do to? And I think the thing is you're expecting to lose this key piece as well for a while. How are you thinking about sort of that transition period?
This is perhaps the most difficult decision that a GM would have to deal with. To replace someone who became so dominant and so good in the understanding and the cohesion, even of a very well functioning unit. But in all fairness, they would have to bring another point guard. We do know there were a lot of talks, a lot of reports saying that Preplich, who's more of a shooter, correct me if I'm wrong, which I am not, they need a point. Someone that could help Sergio Yui and will simply help the entire Madrid offense be as fluent as possible. Now, the names of the guards that are on the market I would say that, first of all, if I were a GM, I would look for someone that could play mostly half-court sets, because we do know that Yui knows how to push the ball forward very well, and he has proven to us that he's back. Like, he's the same old monster of an amazing player that he is. Simple as that. And with that being said, the adjustment period should be like, as a GM, you should not allow for an adjustment period to be so long, because then you could find yourself snowballing into something that you don't want to do, like to get to a place that you do not want to be in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that. And that actually, I think, is a nice way to lead on to our second topic of the day, which is the unusual, unpredictable nature of the rumor mill. So we could talk about who's going where and all that to a degree, but I think the macro picture is more relevant at this stage of the season, or sort of the beginning of the off season. As we're recording on Saturday, the European season formally ends tomorrow with the Game 5 of the French finals. So we are recording just before the end of the European basketball season as such, which is almost immediately, of course, followed by all the underage tournaments, because this doesn't actually ever stop. And I suppose the first thing is like sort of looking at sort of some of the changes in terms of what teams can do. And Aris, obviously Oli have a significant new sponsorship deal, and after losing the Greek finals and obviously disappointment in the playoff stages of EuroLeague, what impact, and of course the changing of coach as well, which we will get to the coaching merry-go-round in a few moments, like what impact is this new sponsorship deal going to have for Olympiacos, because it is a significant one they've picked up?
I really don't believe that it will change much, and it's the main thing. Olympiacos is having a deal which is longer than usual. It's a 5-year deal, and that gives to the team a stability. The rise of revenues compared to the previous deal with the Greek states, the Greek state-owned betting company, it's not that different per year. So I think that the fact is that the ability to have a team that can make some long-term planning, this is the real benefit that Olympiacos gets from this new deal. And maybe this is a sign for things to come from Olympiacos. This was made public. I think that many similar deals will start happening around Europe. I think that's the importance of this specific deal.
And looking across city in Athens before we jump over to Moshe, Aris, Panathinaikos, we don't know who they're bringing in, but they seem to be on the verge of losing a lot of bodies. And obviously, it's been a tough time for the club as well with the recent passing of Yanakopoulos Senior. For you, like, what do you see as sort of being the plan at POW, so to speak, given it looks like we're going to have some serious roster shake-up there?
I think that this is a situation that we should expect to see unfolding in the following days, because at this point everything first and foremost is about Nick Kalathis. And I think that if Nick Kalathis doesn't get the offer that he wants from the NBA, he will stay in Panathinaikos, as simple as that. I know that there are some reports that are saying that Panathinaikos is already moving to other options because Kalathis is not giving them an answer, because he obviously waits for the NBA. But I don't think that if Kalathis says that he returns, Panathinaikos at some point during the summer will say no. With Kalathis in the fold, pretty much Xavi Pascual has the main player that he needs in order to play his brand of basketball. With Mike James and Chris Singleton, things are pretty murky, because I think that also both of them are waiting for the NBA. And it seems that if Panathinaikos wants to give a raise to Kalathis and also to either Mike James or Chris Singleton, they will not be able to give a significant raise and keep all three of them. I think that the most logical scenario is for Panathinaikos to keep Kalathis and maybe one of the other two guys. If that happens, if they lose just one guy, then they will be a pretty similar team. Having said that, most of the last summer moves of Panathinaikos didn't pan out. No one from the players added was a solid contributor every night. I think that the most solid player turned out to be Jan Vougioukas, and he will probably stay in the team. For Panathinaikos also, getting Ioannis Papapetrou is a priority, not only because they will get a player from Olympiacos, but also because they need top-level Greek players. So the main question here is Kalathis. If Kalathis stays, we will see a pretty similar Panathinaikos, even if Chris Singleton and Mike James will be missed. If Kalathis leaves, then I think that the alarm should sound in Athens.
And now, Moshe, in speaking of sort of, alarm sounding, more like these sort of, more like an alarm clock rather than a fire alarm with Milan. They seemed to wake up one morning and decided they wanted the entire backcourt of humanity. You look at all the guards they're signing. Is there a plan here, or are they just throwing bad money after good or whatever? Or good money after bad, sorry.
Aris, do you want to take this one? Because I have no idea whatsoever what are they doing. There are talks about Mike James, and when you think about Mike James with Nedovic, with Amadeo Della Valle, and Bertan's supposed to be staying, right? Good luck, perhaps saying goodbye, maybe not. Wow. It's, where do we even begin?
I think that's the thing with Milano, though, like, just looking from my own perspective, is they have seemed to, like, there was a step forward this season in terms of the win-loss record, in terms of the final finishing position, but I've really, you got to look at sort of the strategy, because you got, Piangiani in there, and we all know the type of game he wants to play. It's rudimentary but effective when it's done right, but he needs to have the right players to do it. And, it's like but there is sort of a ceiling to it in certain parts. But at least he got things sorted domestically. They had a very good Serie A season. They won the playoffs fairly convincingly in the end.
Wait. They had a very good season at the end of it, because good luck, ended game 5, I think, with a huge block in the last second. And that was why they got the 2 games lead, and then they sealed the deal, I think. I can't remember if it was a 2-game lead or took the advantage back. But the thing is, it's like, are they planning to do something different with basketball to redefine the game, like going extreme small ball? Like, what is that? Aris, please, can you shed something to explain it?
Look, I think that they just felt the need to add some playmaking abilities to the team, because they believed a lot in Kalnietis, and when he didn't prove solid enough in order to be their guy, they tried to find another alternative. I believe that's the reason for the whole uphaul of the roster, and that's why Nedovic is their clear priority. It goes without any question that their priority is Nedovic. It will be a big surprise for me for Nedovic not to end up at Milan, and I have no idea what will happen with the rest of the guys. I think that Milano is pretty optimistic about getting Mike James, but we will have to wait and see what will happen. With Mike James also in the roster, I think that Jordan Theodore is probably out, and also the spot of Galdlock is under question, and that's about it. I think that the base of the team is the perimeter, the backcourt. So they need a guy who can be their starting point guard, and this is Nedovic. They also need a guy that will be their main scoring option, and that's the idea behind Mike James. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike James ultimately, for whatever reason, doesn't stay, that doesn't end up in Milan. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Goodluck stayed with the team after all. As for Amadeo Della Valle, it's only natural for the EuroLeague teams to try to get the best players available from their own country. So I think that even if Milano was loaded in that position, they will just had to sign Amadeo Della Valle in order to take him away from their competition. It's only natural.
Yes, but Aris, I have to ask, like, you see Madrid's backcourt, you, just like I did and just like Emmet, we heard about Preplic perhaps being a reinforcement for Madrid, and you see the vision, you understand what stands, you understand a concept that goes beyond and behind that potential signing. And do you recognize, do you see any vision whatsoever when you hear all these names coming together besides them having the flash, being so glamorous names?
Yes, Milan didn't make it to the playoffs this time around, but at least they had a solid mentality and a solid game plan. And at the start of the season, they were defeated in many close games. I think that the general idea is that the plan should work, especially if we get more proven guys for our roles, not necessarily better players, but guys who will serve better the game plan.
I mean, do you see those guys coexist together? That's the main. That's the main idea.
Yes, I think that a guy like Nedovic has the ability also to share the ball. I believe that even a guy like Mike James, who has the ability to score all the time, can also spend some minutes playmaking. And I think that the general profile of Milan will not change. I don't see them trying to play something else. And the idea of getting also Jeff Brooks in the mix is the idea to get better defenders around the paint and better rebounders in order to control the pace and run. I believe that the idea for Milano is to be something similar with Maccabi, and that's the main question: if they can be something like Maccabi and be solid enough in order to make it to the playoffs. And winning the local championship, the domestic league, is the saving grace for many teams. For example, if you compare Panathinaikos and Olympiakos season in the EuroLeague, you can't pinpoint a lot of difference. You can even say that if Olympiakos was healthy in the playoffs, they could have made it to the Final Four. And in theory, their season compared to Panathinaikos season was much more stable and until the playoffs much more solid. So if Olympiakos had won the Greek League, the situation will be quite contrary, because Olympiakos will be under the impression that their plan finally worked and Panathinaikos will be in the hot seat. Now it's vice versa. So with Milan winning the Italian league and doing it after 2 years of failures to dominate the local league, I think that they believe that they are in a pretty good place.
And speaking of people in good places, in the time since we were last on the air, Sarunas Jaskovic has been linked with teams such as Barcelona, Toronto Raptors, the Monstars, and pretty much anyone else. Saras is one of the guys listed here in a beautifully described topic like by Moshe. He always includes always, but often in the episodes he'll have this very complicated description of a section in the show, which he'll deliberately explain on air. This one has I'll explain. So it's Trey Tompkins, Bradley Wanamaker, Saras, Barcelona, Maccabi, and Ephes. That's our combo slot here. Moshe, for the many listening at home, what are you thinking here, man?
Yeah, you're just gonna have to trust me on this one and listen me out. Hear me out. Here's how it goes. According to various reports, Trey Tompkins and Bradley Wanamaker got an offer from Maccabi. Ephes made an offer to Tompkins. Barcelona made an offer to Wanamaker. And I do believe that the place where Wanamaker might end up is actually going to be very much related to the identity of the next coach of these teams. Now, it's a known thing that Maccabi wanted Wanamaker even from when he was playing in Darussafaka, and they didn't get him. The funny thing is, when you see Tompkins in that list, right? I mean, he's in negotiations with Madrid. Now, why is that funny? Because, I mean, we saw him in the Final Four. He was pretty much one of the main reasons for why the finals ended the way it did.
Yeah, but he seemed also in a good mood, like especially considering everything he went through this year. He seemed very happy in his position, so to speak, there. So that type of thing now doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's usually a good sign, obviously, when someone's considering what they're going to do next.
No, all I'm saying is that it's funny because it's exactly what you said. He looked happy at where he was, winning the titles, and all of a sudden his name is being linked to so many teams, and it just, in a nutshell, it brings us to the point of the rumor mill. I mean, what's going on?
Like, well, I have a simple rule, as you know, most when it comes to the rumor mill, don't believe anything until you've seen him do the photo with the jersey in the club and it's been verified by that club's own account. Like, with Saras, it's a classic example because, like, we were back and forthing, never mind on the show, like, in person and, like, over WhatsApp, well, not over WhatsApp, actually, but we didn't discuss Saras over WhatsApp, ran a bit over Facebook Messenger and other things about where he'd go. And it's kind of going, there's as much chance of him staying where he is as there is going anywhere else. And right now, it's looking off like he stays where he is. He's now a free man of Kaunas, of course.
And also from Barcelona, don't forget, after what happened, that was a monstrosity.
Well, at Barca, that was like, of course, the famous Pezic line, which is more about the personal things between the two men. Pezic saying that if Saras comes, he'll be his third assistant to Pezic. But of course, the one bit of stability, and it really shows you how the bar has gone for Barcelona with stability, is next season they'll be starting the year with the coach they finished it with, which is the first time in this new single format EuroLeague that they'll actually do that. So that stability in the current Barcelona, that has just staying on for at least one more year. Wow, that's a low bar, folks. But yeah, like we can talk about the rumor mill and who's going where, but like everything we say, we talk about where a player individually is going to land, could be wrong by the time people even listen to it. That's how fast it goes. But when you look at a club sort of like Barcelona, like Ephes, like Maccabi, in theory, Ephes and Barca should be the healthier ones right now because their resources are greater than Maccabi's. But Maccabi did the thing that Aris mentioned. They won their domestic championship, and in terms of buying a bit of time by reducing the heat, that helps. No matter what they do in terms of who's on the bench, who's on the floor, the front office at least shown we can get the job done in Israel, which was something they hadn't done for a few years. So there at least that one small thing to hang on, that saving grace. And obviously there's all the plans in Maccabi next year, which are possibly going to be similarly seen with the Turkish sides. Maccabi is very much a direct choice of their own, which is to have a team for the Israeli League and a team for EuroLeague. With the Turkish side's obviously new regulation there, where while you're allowed to increase your number of Americans in the roster to 10 from 8, the number you can dress for a game in the BSL is dropping from 6 to 5. So essentially half your Americans, so your foreign players, your non-Turkish players. My apologies. But that's going to lead to some very different looking Turkish rosters in EuroLeague to BSL, much like we're going to see very different Maccabi in EuroLeague to the Israeli league.
Well, speaking of the Israeli league, the thing is, you guys remember there was a strike, then there was an announcement of the league coming to an end, then all of a sudden they've made some decisions to, you know what, let's postpone the strike and let's discuss things during the off season. Now, there is a committee that should be formed and should discuss things to make decisions for the next season. Now, either way, we do not know how things will officially look for next time, like next year or next season. And we also don't know what's going to happen with Maccabi. Are they going to join the VTB league, or are they going to go through with the two roster plan? There's a lot of things and a lot of implications from each and every one of the decisions. Mainly budget-wise, to see how things unfold, which players are they going to bring. And again, right now, there are more uncertainties than there are certainties with everything that's regarding Maccabi. Me and Emmet, we kind of talked about all the names that were brought up in connection with Maccabi. But at the same time, and by the way, Emmet, I found two more names. As you probably know, the list goes on and on and on. Now, the thing is, I think that's the biggest improvement or the biggest difference from previous years with the club, is they managed to keep the cards very close to their chest. And I think it's a good thing that they are more than successful doing so.
That's fair, and obviously with Maccabi as well, we're not entirely certain who's going to be sort of the man calling the shots next season. But look at the moves we have seen so far, Aris. Any coaching moves that you find that stand out to you as being ones that are interesting, and any potential ones still to be filled that could be quite important?
In theory, we expected some roster moves, some coaches moves, but there are no openings currently. Maccabi hasn't announced it yet, but Coach Pacha is staying, despite the rumors that we have heard throughout the season about the opposite. Coach Pesic also is expected to stay in Barcelona, despite the fact that he was brought in mid-season in order to help the team. I think that Radonic will also stay in Bayern, so that leaves us only one bench in reality to be filled, because Ahmed Saki already replaced Coach David Blatt in Darüşşafaka, and that means that the only big question at this point is what will happen in Olympiacos. Dimitris Itoudis is also staying in CSKA Moscow, and Gran Canaria has already signed a new coach. So I think the only real question here, at this point at least, is what will happen with the coach of Olympiacos. If you follow the Greek reports in general, Olympiacos is in talks with David Blatt. The general sense in Greece is that Blatt will ultimately be Olympiacos man. But the question now is what will be the details of the deal and what will happen if there is no deal. I think, just for the sake of the conversation, that we should agree at this point that Blatt is a realistic possibility, and a deal should also be considered something very feasible, because Olympiacos tried to contact almost every available coach. There are reports about Olympiacos reaching even Ettore Messina, and in theory starting talks with him in order to get him away from the NBA and back to the EuroLeague. So I think that if you take into consideration all the factors, both for David Blatt at this point, because we don't know yet if there is an opening for him, even as an assistant in the NBA, and also we don't know if there is a coach with a better resume around for Olympiacos who is really available. I think that it seems that Olympiacos and Blatt at this point are both in kind of need of each other. So this will be the only major coaching change, and it will be very interesting to see not only what Coach Blatt will do on the bench of Olympiacos, but also what will be the plan of Olympiacos after signing Coach Blatt.
And that, I suppose, given, the way we kind of sort of around the various stories, you've got to go back to Belgrade, I think, to finish this off, gentlemen, for our last segment of the show, really. And, sort of sort of now we've been able to drink in sort of the aftermath, so to speak, because, of course, we had the Odyssey with Aris. I remember, sort of when Seshka lost that, never mind the semi-final, but the third place game, everybody's there, Etudis is gone. Turned out he's not. Fenerbahce, obviously, with the sort of, close but no cigar and trying to get that awful rarity of the back-to-back titles. And Real, finally, for the first time since in West Berlin back in 1980, won a EuroLeague outside of Spain. I suppose, starting with you again, Aris, because, you were watching from afar. What, are your memories that stood out, that we mightn't have... any memories that stood out, really, from that Final Four?
Besides our kick-ass episode with Tyler Hines.
Of course. That was one of the highlights of the Final Four. But I think that no way how you put this. I think that beyond any doubt, this was Luka Doncic's Final Four. It will go down in history like the Final Four that it was dominated by Luka Doncic. And in reality, this was not exactly the case. Okay, Doncic was obviously the MVP, but he didn't dominate the Final Four. He did have real help from his teammates. But the narrative is just too strong in order to deny it. And the fact that Doncic made the Final Four such a global hit, because for the first time there was so much interest from the States towards the EuroLeague Final Four, and the reason, of course, for that was Doncic. The end result will be that nobody can overshadow Doncic and everything that this Final Four meant for him, and also what he meant for this Final Four. Especially given the fact that I wasn't there in Belgrade. That's the global, I think, impression about everything that happened in Belgrade. Every bit of information about Doncic, every highlight, every look that he gave at any given time, any bit of quotes for him or from him was above and beyond anything else happening at Belgrade.
And Moshe, obviously, you had a good time with me. But aside from enjoying yourself in my company, what stood out to you from the Final Four?
Well, first and foremost, that I would say the most underrated name of all in the Final Four was Eddie Tavares' name. Because as much as he was a rim protector in many ways in the Final Four, especially in the finals, he was the one to actually help Facundo Campazzo getting down from the basket where he got stuck on the rim. That was by far, I think, one of the funniest experiences that I've ever got to be a part of. Like getting to witness Facu getting stuck on the rim, and then learning that the two kids, and yes, we can say two kids that got him up there in the first place, were Santi Justa and Dino Radancic, and they could not take him down. That would go down as one of the backstage story for the ages. So I'll start off with that.
And before you go on to the next, and just point out, by the way, it was Fac's own fault. He wanted to go up there because it's an Argentinian thing and didn't think it through and needed help getting down, not realizing the two lads can help him down. Go on there, Moshe.
Yeah, it's still funny as I think about it. I gotta admit, it still makes me laugh. But, at the same time, Facu finished the season as a European champ, so, he's good, I think. It was an amazing experience. I'll say that. It was an amazing experience. And with every Final Four that we attend, we somehow find ourselves just, getting that much. Well, we're not being patient for the next Final Four. We just want it to come because the level of energy that you have in such an amazing event is, I think, is second to none. Unless you're having kids, and that's like, Shara said it before. Who are we to actually dispute that? Because he's right. And so, by the way, I would like to end my part by saying that even though that we've said a lot of things about coaches not moving around, players not leaving, players leaving, I would say this: expect the unexpected. Nothing is finalized until, announced officially otherwise. Best way to put it. Emmet, I'll say this: it was an amazing time spending with you in the Final Four, and also with Aris supporting us from far. I would say, though, that it was fun sitting down in our buddies' night on Saturday, and after the final episode from the Final Four, listening to a coach singing Radio Gaga by Queen is also going to be, one to remember. But what was your moment?
Well, it's a really good one. Like, obviously, it was a great night on the Saturday night, although I think my body didn't like it the Sunday morning.
Hey, I won that competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose for me, just even thinking about it, it was, in many respects, it was the way the Fener and Zalgiris fans ended up staying for almost the entirety of the second game, because it sort of links to the Doncic thing, because it happened before, obviously, Moshe, you remember, because of when Maccabi won the title back in Milano, like, the game with the bigger crowd draw, like the more traveling fans, went first that time, and the Forum emptied out because the Forum's middle of nowhere compared to Milan City, and it led to a really weird atmosphere in the second game, which was a Classico between Barca and Real. This time round, and I was thinking we're probably going to see the same again, and I even said it to a few guys, Americans, who were going to be tuning in. It's like, listen, you're going to notice it kind of be weird that in the second half, suddenly the place will look a lot emptier because the Zalgiris and Fener fans will have gone home because, the hour and they want to get a beer or whatever. And instead, they pretty much stayed. I think that was the thing that jumped out to me. And the reason they were staying wasn't because they wanted to see who they were facing on Sunday. It's because, the kid was the attraction. And that to me was something else about it, because you just don't see that, because also, by the way, if I've travelled over from Istanbul or Zalgiris as a fan, I've paid X amount for a ticket, I'm making my weekend of it, I'm going to the bar, I'm probably not staying for the whole of the next game, unless there's a really big reason. And in that case, we all know the reason, and he's going to be a Maverick now, playing alongside Dirk. And one curious one here now, just to start a rumour mill that's European but not EuroLeague. So Dirk is 40 entering this season in the NBA, guys, and that means for the season after this, he'd be 41. I'm going to bet that will be his last season, because he wants to be the nerd. He's a dork at heart. He wants to be 41, wearing 41, retiring at 41. But that's completely unrelated. But yeah, obviously, it's been a crazy enough season, because it was defined in large part by the what ifs and the injuries, but it was really made by the stories. And obviously, we loved telling them to you guys all through this. We will be back with obviously our preview show in time for the next season. I'm about to do a whole lot of traveling in between. I'm off on holidays, and then I'm off to San Fran for my day job and other sort of things. But until then, I'm going to just leave you off with my sort of, where you can find me at BIE_basketball on Twitter, ballineurope.com, where we'll still be posting, even next week, because of the European small countries being on in Ireland for the women and in San Marino for the men. And of course, you can find us on YouTube as well. Ball in Europe is the tag to look for. Aris, say goodbye for the summer and tell people where to find you.
You will find me in Greece, probably not in some beach, unfortunately, but I will get some time off. It's been a great ride, and you can follow it also during the off season, because as the old saying goes, basketball never stops, and we will track everything down at Eurohoops.net. You can also find me on my personal social media and also at Cosmo.tv, even if this is a summer with very few games this time around. It's the first summer in which there is no major FIBA tournament. There are only the qualifier games, and it will be interesting to see how this will affect next season, and if we will see players that usually were spending a lot of time with their national teams being ready from day one and perform maybe in a better level, just because they had for the first time some real rest this summer.
Say, guys, I don't. Aris, you never really gave us your intake on Facu's elevator story.
You know, the funny thing is that he managed to get there. I didn't expect he was the last guy that I would expect that he would try to cut the net, especially without having a ladder. So next time, bring your ladder with you, Facu, because I think that you will have the chance to cut some other nets, and you are also a great player. And as the saying goes, you may be small, but you play big.
You know, I gotta say that Mike James's reaction on Twitter was even more epic than that, because he actually tried to find out whether Facu lived up to his dream, which was to sit on the rim. And it was surreal, this entire incident. With that being said, guys, it's gonna be a great summer, and because that basketball never stops nor sleeps, so do we. I would say so. No beach for me also, but you can go to the beach and enjoy, because we are preparing season 3 of Sweet 16. So from here in Tel Aviv, you can always find me besides the basketball courts on actually Facebook, the Team Scout page, the website itself, teamscout.net, Twitter, I am Team Scout and @MosesB1. And for one last time this season, till next time.